All right, it's time to turn my microphone on. Yeah. It's 7:30 on October 6th. We'll call the Economic Development Authority meeting to order, and we'll start with roll call.
Bevins.
Here.
Beezer. Kirsch. O'Day.
Here.
Yeager.
Yes.
And Johnson.
Here, that brings us to item number 3 on the agenda, approval or amending the agenda. Is there an approval of the
Move to
agenda?
approve, Bevins. Second.
Yep. We have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. That motion carries. That brings us to the consent calendar. Notice to the public, all matters listed are considered routine by the commission and will all be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless good cause is shown prior to the time the commission votes on the motion to be adopted by roll call.
Motion to approve. Second, Bevins.
We have a motion by O'Day, a second by Bevins to approve the consent calendar. Is there any discussion?
I do have a question with
Tony.
the visit, Brainerd.
Uh-oh. Is Visit Brainerd here to answer? They're not. We're in trouble now.
It's more of an EDA question on it. So,
So we want to pull the Visit Brainerd off and approve that separately?
yes.
All right, let's do that. All in favor of everything but Visit Brainerd's report, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Now let's discuss the Visit Brainerd report. Tony?
On the visit, Brainerd, if you could pull that up, there's one section that says they're on hold for the EDA, number 3. I was wondering if we could enact that. Or if we're waiting for something.
On hold per the EDA, we must have told Visit Brainerd to wait, develop and implement an advertising campaign focused on recruiting existing businesses outside of Brainerd to relocate to areas within corporate limits of the city of Brainerd. I don't recall. Jennifer, did the EDA tell the Visit Brainerd to hold off on that?
Mr. Chair,
Kelly.
let's just move forward. I move that we designate staff to notify the Visit Brainerd that they can move forward with item 3
Second.
and bring back a proposal.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to move forward with item 3 and bring back a proposal to us telling us what you're going to do. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the Visit Brainerd report as changed.
Second, Beezer.
We have a motion and a second to approve the Visit Brainerd report. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Mr.
That
Chair.
motion carries. Jennifer.
Consent calendar should be roll call vote, please.
Oh, we did that by voice. Sorry. Back to the consent calendar. Let's do a roll call vote.
Aye.
Bevins.
Aye.
Beezer.
Aye.
Kirsch. O'Day.
Aye.
Yeager.
Aye.
And Johnson.
Aye, that motion carries. That brings us to old business. 5A, consider subcommittee recommendations for the Deed Main Street Revitalization Program. And I don't know who's handling this, Tyler, maybe? Sure, I can. Okay.
Turn my microphone on. So, as you're all aware, the Main Street Revitalization Act is a grant program, grant funding provided by the Minnesota Department of Employment and Economic Development. They're overseeing Main Street, this program, and this is actually the second iteration of funds coming out from this program. They roughly had $80 million earmarked, and last year they moved $40 million out to the community. This program was initially designed to provide funding for areas throughout the state that were suffering from civil unrest during the pandemic and during the George Floyd process. So after that first iteration, they realized that more of this money needed to go to outstate Minnesota as well, and they primarily identified Main Street corridors as the reason for the opportunities for funding to be provided. So the Initiative Foundation made a request for over $8 million with the second round of funding to come out. They were awarded $4.5 million. With that, they allocated their funds throughout the region and provided funding to those areas that could identify a Main Street corridor. Brainerd was one of those areas. They were allocated $765,600 to be used for the River to Rail corridor, and then asked that the EDA, the Brainerd EDA, make recommendations on funding requests in Brainerd to the Initiative Foundation for final approval. With that, Brainerd EDA established a subcommittee to work through the applications. The Initiative Foundation contracted with Bladec to administer the grant program, and we have done that. So the subcommittee was made up of 5 members of the community. 2 members of the EDA were on that committee. Kevin Yeager and Marie Kirsch was originally there. Marie's business had applied for a grant, so she was asked to step down. So Gabe Johnson filled in to fill her seat. And then we had Bruce Buxton, the mayor, Dave Badeau, and Mary Devine Johnson were the 5 subcommittee members. We went through the application process was open from July 25th through September 5th. We ended up receiving 44 applications, totaling over $25 million worth of projects and $3.1 million in total in Main Street grant requests. So the EDA members, the subcommittee members met and went through the applications, and you will see on the back side of the form here the applications that were recommended by the subcommittee for the full EDA board to consider for approval to the Initiative Foundation. I will also note that through this process that the EDA provided $80,000 that were, I originally believe, out of the ARPA funds to enhance the total amount that was available in the grant. The Brainerd HRA also provided $20,000 for funding, and so that added an additional $100,000. So that was basically funds that could be used at the discretion of the subcommittee. Anything else, Gabe?
That's
Ballpark.
a good recap, Tyler.
Okay.
Are there any questions from the EDA?
I have a quick
Mike?
question. I have a question about the process going forward. I think, I've heard that it was a very thorough discussion. Everybody did a great job. I just have a question going forward about everything. If I want to see all these projects go through with this, but if they don't, is there a way that we're tracking them? Because they have to be spent by what is at the end of 2024?
Yeah, you actually have, from when the Initiative Foundation received funding, the projects had 36 months to be completed. So the Initiative Foundation, since they have the funds, they will be the ones that will be tracking the process. Once they cut checks, then they have a due diligence back to the state to make sure that the projects are completed in that timeline.
So the risk would be if these projects that we award do not complete their project, that money would just go back to the state. It wouldn't come back to the city.
That would be my understanding.
Okay.
And the Initiative Foundation is the responsible party for tracking that this amount is 30%
Correct.
or less of the project.
Correct.
Because the scopes are all going to change on
Yes.
every single one.
Yep. The Initiative Foundation is responsible for the compliance. So they'll be, once you make the recommendations, the process that we'll go through with the Initiative Foundation will be to verify matching funds. It's through the Initiative Foundation will do that directly with the individuals through a secured portal. We have granted them access to the SharePoint or the ShareFile system so that the Initiative Foundation, we aren't submitting anything over the internet. They're just having access to the system where the files are being held right now.
Okay, any other questions, Marie?
Yeah, I just want to first thank the selection committee for their time. It's awesome that we got that many applications in, and I know that's a very time-consuming process to look through all those, so I thank all the committee members for taking the time to review all those applications. I do just have some concerns about how the matching funds, so the ARPA dollars and the HRA funds, are being allocated. If I'm understanding correctly, we basically put the $80,000 plus the $20,000 from those 2 additional funding sources into like a bigger pot of money, and we're just distributing across all the projects. So one of my concerns with that is that there were some stipulations on that funding that they, for HRA, for example, it had to be a project of an overall cost of $50,000 or less. So I see that the Habitat for Humanity project is getting allocated all of the HRA funds, but their total project cost was over 50,000. So I just would want to clarify that we're still able to allocate those funds that way. And then additionally, the ARPA funds, we had stipulated that it was for projects of a total cost of under 100,000. So I'm not sure from looking at, all I see is a column for recommended funding. I can't really tell how much of that recommended funding is coming from the deed funds versus the ARPA or the HRA funds, but I just would want to clarify that we're allocating those additional dollars to projects that fit the criteria. So yeah, I just would want to go back to the subcommittee to reconsider that. And then additionally, I just feel like the way that it's allocated, we're kind of choosing quantity over quality of projects. We're allocating the minimum amount, 30% across all the projects, so that has the benefit that we're funding more projects, but we had set aside those matching dollars to kind of be a bridge for some of those smaller businesses to be able to do some of these maybe smaller projects that wouldn't be able to get done without those additional dollars to get them up to a larger portion of their total project budget. So I just sort of feel like the way that those matching dollars were allocated is not really fitting with what we had kind of set out to begin with for setting those funds aside. So I guess I'd want the subcommittee to go back and look at this and consider that before we approve it today.
Okay, so that's not a question so much as a recommendation that we go back and make sure that the subcommittee is recommending
Yeah,
the
I guess
requirements that were set forth by the HRA and EDA.
with the information I have here, I'm not able to make an informed decision about whether those funds were allocated correctly, and so I wouldn't be able to approve this as it stands.
Thank you, Mike.
Is it just the HRA, just the HRA $20,000, or is it the other EDA funds that had another stipulation?
The ARPA funds, we had stipulated that they would need to go towards projects of a total cost of 100,000 or less, and we said that we would give preference to projects that were 50,000 or less. So I'm not sure how the subcommittee weighted that when they were ranking these. Yeah.
So I'm counting 18 projects under 50,000. I'm counting between 50 and 100,000. 1, 2, just a couple projects there. Is there any way that money could still be distributed and follow those rules with the recommendations that we have? Would staff have an answer to that? Or Tyler?
You could. I'm sure there's a way to do it. It's just not the way the subcommittee chose to disperse the funds. So the subcommittee let them speak for their rationale behind that. But if you needed us to go back through them all and disperse that out in increments, I'm not even sure. Oh, we could do it. But I defer to the subcommittee.
Right, and so as a member of the subcommittee, I'd say, I think your assessment's pretty much right, Marie, that we made the conscious decision to go with the quantity, to give as many grants and fund as many projects as possible. I think you're absolutely right that the HRA said it has to be projects under $50,000. And right here, we're putting all 20,000, the recommendation is put all 20 towards a $141,000 project. But as chair of the HRA, I would say I'm comfortable in seeing all of these projects that I know the HRA money could be going towards the flagpole at the Legion, could be going towards the front of the gallery, could be going towards the signage and the awning improvements. So we could go back to the subcommittee and then just reassign all of the money in different areas and then come back with the exact same recommendation list if that's what you're looking for.
Yeah, I guess my bigger issue with the way this was allocated is that we're choosing a larger number of projects. The likelihood that some of these smaller businesses are going to be able to fulfill their project requirements with only getting allocated 30% of their budget versus like, say, up to 70% if they were to get matching funds. I just am concerned that some of these businesses are not going to be able to complete their projects with the way it is allocated. And I just go back to the reason that we set these matching funds aside is to help be a bridge, to help, we identified them as matching funds to help make up that difference, given that the projects, that the deed funding could only cover 30% of the projects. So I just feel like the way that it's allocated is not in keeping with kind of our understanding of how those funds were to be used.
Yeah, and we didn't know how many applications we were gonna.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I guess I'm also just, we're kind of across the board just assigning 30% of a project budget across all of these projects. I'm not sure what the ranking was or how these, where these scored, but basically even the lowest scored project is gonna receive the same amount as a higher scored project that maybe is higher priority. So while that's very equitable of the selection committee to just allocate the funds equally across all the projects, I guess I would like to see more funding get awarded to some of the higher priority or higher ranked projects.
Okay, well, there were plenty of projects who got $0, and they would say it's not very equitable because other people did get dollars.
Fair enough.
But Kevin, do you have any thoughts? Bruce, do you have any additional thoughts on how we kind of worked this out in a subcommittee to put this recommendation forward?
Mr. Chair, I have nothing to add other than to say I feel like the subcommittee worked in such a way that every participant in the subcommittee had the same information to review. Every participant in the subcommittee had the option to look at each individual item, score it individually. We then tabulated those scores cumulatively, and then we added a metric of value based upon our ranking: childcare, housing, landscaping, and small business. We extrapolated all of that math to mechanically put the projects in the order of what we saw. We then talked through each project, viability-wise and otherwise, and eventually created this list. So I feel like our committee did exactly what we were tasked to do. I don't necessarily think that is above being considered something, another consideration, but I feel confident in our list of what we have here, guys.
I guess I have one more question, Tyler, on Marie's concerns. Say we give, like, I don't know, somebody exactly what they asked for. Nobody asked for more than 30%. Say we give somebody their $10,000, but their project ends up not being feasible, and the $10,000, they end up not taking the $10,000, and the Initiative Foundation is still holding it. Does the Initiative Foundation come back to the Brainerd EDA and we look further down our list? Or
Yes.
it goes back to the state immediately? We still have, all our other applicants can still be funded
That's correct. Yes.
going forward. Okay.
Likewise with the EDA and HRA funds, that wouldn't sit with the Initiative Foundation, would that?
Those are local dollars.
Okay. So those will be handled the same way? So there could be some redistribution, 2-3 years down the road if something isn't committed to completion, or if they come back and tell us, sorry, we're not going to do this $65,000 project.
Yep.
We could have potentially another $20,000 to redistribute.
But I think it'll be next November, right, Tyler? They have, like, people have 18 months from the time
Correct.
Start it.
the Initiative Foundation got the money to start the project. So
Correct.
if any of these don't start by next November,
November.
we're going to be meeting here talking about what to do.
That is correct.
Any other discussion? I'm ready for a motion to approve or reject and send back to the subcommittee.
Mr. Chair?
Yep.
Move to approve as presented.
I will abstain, as my company I'm involved with is on this list, so.
We have a motion to approve it.
I have to abstain as well.
We don't have a second. We have nothing to abstain from. We have a motion to approve the list as presented.
I'll second
We have
Yeager.
a motion and a second. Mike,
Abstaining.
we have an abstention.
I have to
We have a
abstain.
second abstention,
Would abstain as well.
and we have a third abstention. Is this enough people to vote?
So, Mr. Chair, we did talk about this a little bit yesterday. One of the things that you could do, you will not have a quorum with 3 votes. One of the things that you could do.
That was my question. So we do not have a quorum with 3 people abstaining. Thank you. So at this time, let's pull out the 3 reasons these individuals are abstaining. Let's pull out Lane Chiropractic, let's pull out Knotty Pine Bakery, and let's pull out,
I can't tell you
you
which one
can't
is
tell
it.
us, but we're going to pull it out. We'll let you abstain from all of the votes. We'll pull out Knotty Pine Bakery and Lakes Chiropractic, and can we get a motion to approve everything except for those 2 projects?
So moved, Kelly.
Second, Yeager.
Should we pull DDBC out, 'cause I'm on the board?
Let's pull DDBC out of here too, yeah.
No, you don't have to pull that one out. You do not personally financially benefit from that, so you do not have to abstain from voting on that.
We'll leave that in. We have a motion from Kelly to pull the 2 Lakes Chiropractic and Knotty Pine out. Kevin,
Second, yes.
second on that. Tony's going to abstain from this vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Now let's vote on the Knotty Pine Bakery, or let's
Motion
get
to
a,
approve, Bevins.
Second, Yeager.
we have a motion and a second to approve the Knotty Pine Bakery grant. Any discussion? We have 2 abstentions. Marie and Tony are abstaining from it. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Next item up is let's get a motion to approve the Lakes Chiropractic grant.
So moved, Bevins.
Second, Yeager.
We have a motion and a second.
Abstain?
Mike is abstaining. All in favor, say
I
aye.
have to
Aye.
abstain as well.
Tony will abstain from this one as well, because high tech builds everything in this town. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Okay, is that all we have to do here with this Main Street Revitalization grant today, Tyler?
It is. We will take care of the rest of it.
All right.
Thank you all.
Thank
Thanks
you
to-
for your work.
Yeah, thanks to the subcommittee as well.
You could come address the commission for a moment.
Cheryl Hills, Region 5 Development Commission, nice to see you all. First of all, the recommendation would be that you let all of the recipients know what the reporting requirements will be on these awards so they can make an informed decision about how much time they're spending on these.
Is your microphone on?
Can you hear me?
Well, it's about the people on the internet and cable TV. I don't
watch
know if it's
back.
on.
There's a little button on the top if you can.
Should have a green light.
There we go. Cheryl Hills, Region 5 Development Commission. The recommendation is twofold. One, that you let the recipients of these awards know exactly what will be required for reporting. There is an extensive amount of reporting, and it's still being created and understood by the Initiative Foundation as that's being framed up by deed. And sometimes these small awards will consume considerable staff time. So recommendations to think about funding them in whole is what I'd like to bring forward, and it's transparent in terms of what's going to be needed. Secondly, Region 5 Development Commission is on that list that you approved it. Thank you very much. We will not be accepting that award for $50,000. That amount of money for the type of project that we're looking at is just not enough to make it even important enough for us to do the reporting on. So you will have those funds to redisperse to other projects. So I'm glad you thought of a process in which to do that, because I'm sure several of those projects are going to say that's not going to work for us. It would be great if those dollars, because it is up to the committee, who's done a great job, thank you guys, would go to a project that we know is really important in terms of, they all are, but the childcare with the YMCA is probably going to be high priority for this area. So it's our hope from the commission that those dollars are reallocated to the YMCA. That's up to the committee's discretion. We understand that. Lastly, I will say, there was a lot more behind the scenes than what Tyler explained for this work. Obviously, these kinds of monies don't just come down in the way that we always want them to for rural Minnesota. And there was a lot of advocacy that happened on behalf of not only asking the Initiative Foundation to be an intermediary, of which they did refuse at first until there was an awful lot of pleading, specifically for the city of Brainerd and this project and the projects within this community. Once the Initiative Foundation did agree to be an intermediary, there was a lot of behind-the-scene advocacy to deed to make sure Brainerd was included, because there wasn't a high priority in the beginning stages of making these decisions. So conversations with not only the Commissioner of Deed, but the Deputy Commissioners of Deed, advocacy to make sure the dollars came here for this project, for these works. A lot of great projects are going to come out of this. That said, the advocacy happened on behalf of Region 5 Development Commission, which did not receive the money that they needed for the project to happen in the city of Brainerd, and that project will not move forward with our organization. regardless of where the money comes from, as a result of some pretty damaged trust. That said, we're glad the money did come to Brainerd, because that's our job, is to bring money to the region and make sure great things are happening in the space of economic development. So on behalf of the commission, you're welcome. And we hope that these funds are put to good use and wonderful things happen for the community. Thank you.
Thank you for that informative presentation. Let's go to the next item on the agenda, which is establish goals and action steps for the EDA. Jennifer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In your packet are a couple of different things. In February, I think it was February of 2021, the EDA hired Bruce Miles from Big River Consulting to conduct a strategic planning session. We were at the fire department. Thought there was a lot of really great discussion. You went into small groups and you really talked about what it is and where you wanted to see the EDA go from that point. So one of the things that came out of that were a set of goals that included action steps, and those are also included in your packet. We've tried to, throughout the last year and 8 months, provide you periodic updates on those goals, so you do have that in your packet. I think one of the things that also came out of the strategic planning session as a result of your goals and your action step really was to look outside of the organization and do RFPs to try to solicit organizations who could provide services on behalf of the EDA that met or accomplished the goals and action steps that you set out. I also, just for your reference, included the 3 organizations that specifically had scopes of services. That's DDBC, Swanson Hascamp, and Visit Brainerd. You'll see in that what that scope was and what the EDA was asking them to do. Not necessarily tracked in your goals per se, but certainly were tracked when you were receiving your monthly updates from each one of those organizations. So with that, since these goals really went through 12/31 of 2022, we thought it might be timely to have this discussion again, go through your goals and see where you want to go. I typically recommend having 2-year goals, just because sometimes it takes you a while to start that, and might take another 18 months to really get in and accomplish the goals that you set forth for the organization. So with that, Mr. Chair, what I did do is I've done this with the HRA for the last 8 years prior to me leaving the HRA. And what we would really do is, what the HRA really looked at was they liked their goals, but their action steps changed every year. So I gave you a goals worksheet in your packet to look at different action steps if that's something you would like, or also if there are any additional goals that the EDA would like to have staff focus on in the next 2 years. I'm happy to go through the goals and the accomplishments that were made. You'll see in those goals and that status update, there were some that have not been completed yet, and there are also some that we're waiting for results. For example, Bladec is working on their business retention and expansion interviews and plan to get those to the EDA by the end of the year. That really was kind of the stage for a couple of subsequent goals, like creating programs, seeking funding for programs based on the needs of our businesses in Brainerd. So, Mr. Chair, however you would like us to handle this, I'm happy to do that. I put up sheets on the back. I'm happy to take a Sharpie and just scribe whatever it is that you guys would like to look at for your action steps or new goals for your next 2-year cycle.
So Jennifer, I guess my first question is, if we do new action steps, is that just going to eliminate these old action steps?
You can do it however you would like. If you want to keep those
if we do this process today, are the action steps on the document in front of me going to stay on that document, or are they going to go away?
If you would like them to stay, we can continue those action steps for the next 2 years. If you don't believe that that is what the EDA should be focusing on, we don't need to have those action steps, and you may have new action steps as well.
Because, I mean, like identify possible uses for underutilized properties, just as an example. I was after a project management team meeting on the Trunk Highway 210 project, I was kind of looking at the GIS and looking at properties, and I realized the city owns a 25-acre parcel behind ATEC that looks like it's been a multi-generational mattress dump for the entire city of Brainerd. Like, that's pretty underutilized. Can we get that cleaned up?
I like that.
Perhaps we could charge for the mattress dumping.
Yeah, have at least a drop box for donations or something. But it's like, I think we should continue to be identifying underutilized properties, especially those under control of the city of Brainerd. I don't want that to go away. So is that going to stay, or do we need to like give you direction to keep that as a future goal?
We would like direction to keep that as a future goal, and if I look behind, so that's the create inventory. So the recommendation is to identify possible uses for underutilized properties, correct?
Can
Well,
I
let's
make one
not-
suggestion, that we keep everything on this list unless we specifically say to take it off?
I like that. Let's keep all of the action steps unless you're directed to remove it. I like that tone.
Perfect.
Okay, so then what's next step, Jennifer?
Do you have any additional action steps that you would like to have under these goals? Do you have any additional goals that you would like the EDA to focus on in the upcoming years?
Do you want to go post-it note by post-it note, Jennifer?
Sure can.
I'm wondering how you want to do, you wanted this on the agenda. How do you want to do this?
Yes, I want to go post-it note by post-it note on each goal and action steps and what you would like to have. I hear right now that the recommendation is to keep all of the ones that are currently on. Are there any additional action items that you would like to have?
Okay, let's,
So for example, create programs and seek funding to address identified needs.
does anybody have a new or a refined, one of the current action steps for create programs and seek funding to address identified needs?
So, Mr. Chair, on there right now are to evaluate the results of BladeX business interviews to assess needs and categorize them. 2 is to develop and propose programs to address the needs identified from the BladeX business interview. And the other is to seek funding sources to support the proposed programs. Are there any additional action steps that you would like to see under create programs and seek funding to address the identified needs? Or do you believe that all 3 of those encompass or kind of fulfill what it is you would like to accomplish?
Yeah, from my opinion, it looks like these 3 that we're still working on and are not completed are pretty well encompassed. Does anybody have anything to add?
I guess, so my understanding is BladeX doing a pretty limited number of interviews, so I just am figuring, is there a way for us to contract with another vendor or to work with BladeX to just expand that, so we're kind of doing a wider survey of businesses?
Tyler, how many businesses in the city do you expect to have interviewed by the end of the year?
We're interviewing different ones than we did last year, so, we think we did 30, 32 or 35 last year. We'll do probably around that again this year. It's just Allison and I, so it's a lot. I mean, so, but I think we glean a lot of information out of that, and our new relationship with the SBDC has come out of some of those interviews. So, and we've been doing a lot with that process as well. So,
Yeah,
it's a couple-year process. So.
I don't know if this falls under this goal or a new goal, but I just feel what is lacking is some solid standardized metrics for us to understand the scope of what's going on. So, and I don't even know what metrics we need to be looking at, but it would just be nice if we could identify some standardized numbers. Like, I don't know if it's, for example, like number of vacant buildings, just I don't even know where to start with that, but just so we can have a better snapshot of kind of what our economic health is so that we can make more informed decisions.
And I think that would come from all of the work that gets done. If we're looking at vacant properties, and we identify those, we're working with Jennifer on listing those, listing those out as well. So, it comes from a lot of that. The information that we get from a lot of these interviews is that, we're doing fine, business is good right now, but we have some concerns with some of the responses we get. It's, cost of borrowing money right now, the cost of expansion. There's a lot of things that are going on that are affecting growth, but it's not that it's affecting it to a point where they're not trying to grow. It's just getting more difficult.
Yeah, I guess just one thing I identified when we were looking through the goals is we don't have a lot of measurable goals, so it's really hard for us to track progress. So I think we need to work on that. And I think if we identified some key indicators of things we wanted to track, that would help us better assess whether the actions we're taking are being effective or not.
So you're saying we need to identify what identified needs means?
Yeah, I mean, we need to set a goal to set better goals. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't, like I said, I don't even know where to start. I just don't know if we look at what other cities, like, do they have some sort of dashboard or, you know, metrics that they've found most useful to be able, just to make more informed decisions and kind of get a better picture of where we're at and where we need to be going.
So maybe come back with some framed metrics that may be able to help you gauge those needs of businesses in the future?
Yeah, I think the first step is just identifying like what are other cities using, or what are some suggestions for things that are helpful metrics to be tracking, and then set up something where we can have at each monthly meeting we just have a snapshot, or maybe it's a quarterly report, just something so we can be monitoring that. And then I guess within our individual goals, just have more measurable goals, like are we looking to increase the number of businesses, reduce vacancies? So like we would need to track, how many vacant businesses do we have, and see is that improving over time or not.
Great, thank you. Any other comments on that goal to create programs and seek funding needs to address identified needs? I mean, sorry, Mike, go ahead.
Mike, go ahead.
As far as creating programs, I think this is a good start. I think we've done a lot with downtown. I think we should continue to do that with downtown, but we need to start thinking more about the main arteries coming through town. Washington Street, South 6th Street, Oak Street, Mill Avenue, and maybe even College Drive. As far as businesses, what they need, how many businesses are looking to improve facades? How many businesses are vacant, like we were saying? And not just retail and regular business, but also rentals, apartment buildings. Just talk to these landowners or landlords and see if there's any roadblocks from upkeep with maintenance, things like that, and then try and figure out what type of funding. Obviously, the most obvious would be ARPA funds. I don't know if we want to go that route, if we want to do regular EDA funding, or something else.
In addition to that, can Bladex send us a sheet on the interviews they've done over the last year and a half, and just doesn't have to have names, but just how many are looking for facades, how many are looking just number-wise, just so we can see what the main focus
How
is.
much money we could put towards something like
Yeah,
that.
what the main focus is.
Just kind of hit the high points of
Yeah.
what you're hearing.
Sure. Yeah. I just want to be cautious because honestly, nobody's telling us that they need a facade. But
That was just an example.
Add it to your question.
yeah, we can add it. It's
Well,
I'm guessing financing and employees are the two.
The other
Yeah.
ones.
yeah, especially. It's
So
not my.
just so we know-
That's not on me, Mike, to determine that one.
just so we know what is out there and what are they wanting, to see if we can tackle that issue or not.
Sure.
Okay, anything else for create programs and seek funding to address identified needs?
So, Mr. Chair, so you also, the EDA does have a pool of funds that potentially could be used to create programs. So one of the things that I think our hope from a staff perspective is that when we get the business interview results, we can help bring back some recommendations on programs that you may want to create with that funding that you currently have. I think, and it's kind of covered in here on those existing goals, and maybe that's just fine, but I just wanted to make sure that we continue to talk about those funds, because those could really help businesses move forward as well. We could also potentially use those funds to leverage additional funds as well.
So I'm not hearing anything else more on create programs and seek funding to address identified needs. Perhaps creating a program out of our own funds after we identify what the identified needs are. Start identifying things.
The only other obvious one that comes up is just like we did with Destination Downtown. We could do that through the city. We could do a citywide startup business contest. It's a lot of work. I know that what was it? The Chamber and Bladeac were, I believe, involved quite a bit in those too.
There was a lot of time on.
But they were
on there.
successful.
Yeah, they were successful. We got Marie Kershaw
He
out of
knows.
the deal.
Yeah. I don't know if that's something we want to tackle while we're doing a lot of this other stuff, but it's something that we need to keep in mind.
Okay, we got that one written down. I'm not hearing anything else for creating programs or identifying needs. Well, create an inventory of underused and underdeveloped properties and work with property owners to market them for redevelopment. One I put on the top of the list for me that I've been asking for years, and you might not know this, James, because you're new here, but I just want like a list of all of the properties the city of Brainerd owns. How many properties are under our direct control? Because there are quite a few, and some of them have a pile of mattresses on them. So let's get those cleaned up. And tires too, but they're two neatly piles like next to each other. The tires are over here and the mattresses are over here. People are courteous.
It's been directed.
Yeah, but they're dumping their garbage on the city lot. Anything else under this one?
Could I mention
James?
something under this category? So I just wanted to let the EDA know kind of what's trending in the community development department on development. So the past 3 years since I've been here, besides Habitat for Humanity, there's maybe been one site each year for redevelopment for residential. This past month, we've seen 3 duplexes in infill redevelopment be issued for a building permit, as well as 2 other single-family homes. So I am seeing, sites that are available for infrastructure, water and sewer. I think there's a definite need to maybe try to find those sites and maybe market those for redevelopment of residential properties.
Even
So just a
privately
thought there.
held infill
Privately
lots?
held or potentially City of Brainerd properties that are next to, that are next to the infrastructure already have that in place. I could see that as being a potential priority.
I like that. Let's add that to the list. James, have you issued a permit for a fourplex recently?
Yes, and for Vicky Kinney's as well,
Yeah.
property that's a fourplex.
Yep. Anything else on the inventory of underused, underdeveloped properties and working with property owners, even if it's the city of Brainerd, to market them for redevelopment?
And then, Mr. Chair, the other items under that category is conduct a GIS assessment of underutilized properties, which Swanson Hascamp really kind of put together a framework for us. Identify possible uses for underutilized property. I think that continues, but elaborates on that a little bit. So,
Yeah, I suppose you could kind of smash some of these together, because like identify possible uses is kind of the infill, multifamily, or just housing development opportunities that we have.
One other thing to kind of mention with that as well that we're hearing, some of these kind of multifamily things I think would help alleviate some of the shortage that we have in dwelling units. Some of the apartment owners are letting us know that sometimes there's like 100 applicants for every unit that comes available. So they have a lot to sort through, and I think there's a lot of need for multifamily housing.
We see that at the HRA. We're having trouble, especially one and two bedroom units, Eric?
Yeah, 1 and 2 bedrooms, we could rent all day throughout the city and throughout the county. And certainly James and Jennifer and hopefully members of the EDA know, we do engage with a number of developers to try to get those balls in the air and to keep them moving to get that multifamily development. We know that those are the biggest bang for our buck, and usually your cost per unit is a lot lower than what a single family home would be. So it is a good strategy. We continue to try to foster that in the city of Brainerd, but then also throughout the county.
Mr. Chair, I was just going to point out, if we're making a list of these properties, it may be easy to just create an overlay over our land use map with a new color. Now, obviously, just as a mechanism for this, just to see physically where they're all at. We have that tool, and I don't think it'd be very difficult if we're making the list anyways, just to see them physically within the city limits, highlighted in a different color, those properties. Mr. Chair, it's just a thought,
Yeah, I think it's
to not only have the list, but to see it physically.
And then, Mr. Chair, the last two in that category is to engage property owners to assess interest in participating in redevelopment program. I think we covered that under there. And then to develop programs for marketing identified programs or properties for redevelopment. Again, I think we kind of cover that under there. And again, we're keeping those same action steps.
Yeah, come on up, Jennifer.
Excuse me, one other thought, sort of tagging on to your conversation where you started about the vacant buildings and vacant storefronts. That's not necessarily redevelopment, but still kind of fits in this category, like when I look at the other categories, because there's sort of the business retention, business question piece of it, but then there's also just the physical inventory piece of it. And I just wonder if that also fits under here, based on what you guys were talking about.
Yeah.
If we're gonna track it, again, it goes back to, we could put it on a map, we could track it. I don't think monthly is probably realistic because stuff takes longer than that, but maybe it is quarterly. I don't know. We're doing an enormous amount of mapping on our end to keep data fresh and so that we have actual metrics. So it feels like there might be a way for us to kind of marry those things together, if that's something you're interested in.
Yeah, put it on the board.
Jennifer, how am I listing that?
Well, I think it goes under inventory, but I think maybe it's, the action step at this point is we need to come up with the strategy of how we're going to inventory sort of those vacant properties. And I'm
That
not.
are vacant storefronts, buildings that are
Right,
move-in
right.
ready, not totally development.
And it's not
opportunities.
necessarily underutilized. It's really, underutilized from the sense of there's no business there. But, in terms of the physical property may not be underutilized. We just don't have a user in it, which is, to me, a little bit different.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know exactly what that looks like. But I feel like there's a way to do that, especially when we're tracking all the data.
All right, anybody else on the inventory of underutilized, underdeveloped properties? All right, let's go to evaluate the city's vacant industrial property for compatible non-industrial uses that would address current and future needs. I think this whole thing was to look and see if we should turn the Wright Street into apartment buildings, right? Did we looked into it? Did planning and zoning look into it and say let's not do it?
Absolutely. I mean, planning and zoning is always open to somebody coming and saying, we want to build an apartment building. I think if somebody just walked in the door and said that, we'd roll out the map and say, where do you want it?
Yeah.
And then go from there.
Does anybody want to add a new action step under the vacant industrial lots?
Mr.
Spent
Mr.
$5
Chair.
million of my dollars on?
Just based on conversations that we've had in the planning and, the planning commission over the past 2 years, I think I would be able to summarize and say that we don't think that the fact that those are listed as industrial is stifling any development within the city limits. So I think that this, to me, is a fairly low-tier priority right now. I think you have to find the people who want to build something first and then figure out how to do it, but I could be wrong on that.
I think the action step would maybe then be just adding it to the list of possible residential development.
Mm-hmm.
High density.
Eric, Jennifer, when you guys are talking to developers, is anybody ever looking to develop an apartment building next to a junk car lot?
Fairground and a crypto
Specifically?
place.
And the fairground and a crypto place? It's like the perfect neighborhood.
No, but when we do have developers come in, we have maps, and we're gonna share with them any vacant property that's available in the city of Brainerd, and you know what?
Regardless
Good
of
for them.
zoning, you'll
If
say
they
that,
wanna go for it.
yeah, we've got
great.
20 acres here, we've got 40 acres there.
Exactly.
Don't talk zoning.
Exactly.
Jennifer.
We've been talking to a fair number of developers also as we've been going through the exercise over the last couple months. There's a couple things. The easier the land is to develop, sometimes it doesn't matter what's next door. So like your downtown infill sites are highly complex, right? You've got a lot of different site constraints, I would call them, that make it difficult. So in some ways, there is sort of that marketing piece that has to go along with it. Of if it's on a map as industrial, people think, well, that's what I'm supposed to put there. So there's like it's a dual. You know what I mean? But it's not to say that anyone's like, I'd really like to be next to a junkyard. Obviously, that causes its own challenges.
It's easy to just toss your mattress out the window when you're done with it.
Well, when you're moving out, it's quite easy, I guess.
And although in Baxter, right across the street from their cryptocurrency that Just for Crypto has, are two big, huge apartment complexes.
But no mattresses.
Well, we can.
Not yet.
We can
Let's
bring
move
them
our
over there.
mattresses over there.
But it's the easy
need some.
factor, right? Like it's a greenfield development, so easy. That's much easier than infill.
Yeah, it's greenfield. It's a little swampy, but it's green in the summer.
We call those wetlands.
It's great in the winter.
Anything else on evaluating the city's vacant industrial properties for compatible non-industrial uses?
And then, Mr. Chair, the two things under there, create an inventory of the city's undeveloped industrial property with an assessment of property surrounding uses. I think you addressed that. Develop a list of non-industrial uses for the city's undeveloped industrial property that may be compatible with each use. And I think that, and maybe this kind of helps flush that out a little bit more, maybe give it a little bit more detail, and we'll work on those action steps to come back to you.
Before we leave that, just because it's been mentioned, we get a lot of complaints about a certain trailer park in town. It's right in the middle of town. And it was brought to my attention just as an idea that when you do change a trailer park into a different type of zoning, you have to move those. And this would be an option, possibly, of a place where you would move said trailer park. At the risk of mentioning moving a trailer park,
I think you
I
just
know
mentioned
Jennifer
it.
would be very excited about that.
We've done it before.
It can happen.
Is that an EDA goal? Is that something we want in here?
Do we want to set as a goal to relocate the James Street Trailer Park in the EDA?
Long-term goal, I would say it would be. Something has to happen. It's half empty anyway. Half full.
The
I presume
trailer
the
park
guy
is half
makes
full.
money off of it.
The guy doesn't live here. He lives in Bemidji.
Yeah,
Nobody knows him.
I think it's something worth looking into.
I do too.
Just looking into it.
Let's look into it. Let's put it on the board.
So, I do want to mention something about how that's zoned. So it is not zoned for a manufactured housing district. So that is, it really precludes them from adding anything to it. We only have two trailer parks that are essentially zoned for manufactured housing district. So just wanted to make the EDA aware of that.
And we get no complaints on either of those. They're both in Southeast Brainerd and very integral components of the housing stock of this county.
Yeah, so right now it's essentially a non-conforming use in that spot. So they can continue to use it as is in our zoning code, but can't add to it.
But as it gets smaller and smaller,
Yep,
it is easier to relocate.
Fewer people. to
exactly.
relocate. All right. Bold action by Commissioner O'Day. Kelly has a hard out here in 7 minutes. So Kelly, anything you want to add to any of these before you
Nope,
leave here in 7
but
minutes?
thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, let's move to the next one. Interview existing businesses to identify each business's needs to take the next step in their business development. So this goes back to the interviews that we kind of started with. Does anybody else have anything to add? We already added 2 things.
Develop a matrix so we can make decisions. I kind of created that as its own goal. As you guys were talking, it seems like that maybe goal 1, right? And we can start framing that. The other one is to do additional interviews than what Bladek is currently doing. That was another thing that was raised by Marie.
And could that be something that one of our summer interns just walks around and interviews people? Would that be a good use of their time? I mean,
Yeah, you guys modified or reviewed the form that we used, and you added a couple of bullet points to it. And if you're comfortable with it, in the past we've used, Bruce has done them in the past. We've had some of our executives do them in the past, just, I don't know, just because Bruce wanted to and he was bored. But no, but if you had an intern that wanted to do some of this stuff, absolutely, it would be worth them doing them.
is it easier to get an interview if you have a professional connection like Bruce would have with a lot of business owners as opposed to a city intern?
I think it's easier for them to talk to you.
To you, like if you walked in the door instead of the intern?
Terry McCullough was doing a lot of them, and
Yeah.
kind of thing. I think business to business, it's easier to relate.
Mm-hmm.
An intern might not know, even though we listed all the questions to ask kind of thing.
Right.
It's kind of mechanical when you have somebody that's not been in business that goes down a list of questions and
Yeah, you just may not hear the
Yeah.
answer they're being given.
I mean, not quite ask the question the right way to get the answer you need.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's the follow-up questions to the question
You gotta
that
be
make
able to
the,
think through that process.
I'm probably out of my lane here, but one of the things we've done in other communities is if you can't interview every single business owner, for example, in a year because you just don't have capacity, we've done like roundtable breakfasts with businesses, like once a quarter, and it sort of gets put out there, and then you can have your questions that are kind of like what are on your questionnaires. You still might want to follow up the next year and do the full questionnaire, but it's another tool that could be helpful to the city if you don't have an individual who can go out and do the actual interview. Just an idea. It's been successful for us in other places.
You guys want to try doing business roundtables?
why not? Give it a shot.
Put it on the board.
If you have donuts especially,
On a Thursday.
food is highly effective.
You know, and I'm gonna go back to that summer intern comment. I think the EDA would be a fantastic place for an intern. You know, somebody who's just graduating from college, wants to learn a little bit more about business development, economic development, redevelopment. I'd love to see maybe one of the EDA's goals be to secure a summer intern that can help accomplish some of these goals that you've set out.
What's the cost of that? Like,
Would you share that individual with us, and we'd bear some of the cost?
Yeah. Well, is it about 12 grand per summer intern?
Yeah, and if it's a college student, we get a grant from Sourcewell that covers a good portion of that.
We'd offset some of that.
You could take some of their time,
Yeah.
yeah, put it on the board and maybe wherever it would fit. Let's explore getting an intern to share with Bladek.
All right, so then under this, I think the existing goals then are complete business retention and expansion visits that involve interviews and information gathering, summarize information gathered from BRE visits and submit to the community development director, and then seek funding sources to support proposed programs, and I think those kind of tie in together. So those are the ones that we'll keep in your existing action.
Okay, seeing anything else on the interview aspect? Not? Work with community partners to develop a cohesive marketing strategy for the community. So this, I don't know where our current action steps are in this one.
So this would be identify and engage strategic community partners and create a marketing strategy. Visit Brainerd did create a marketing strategy, which included the campaigns for a place to work, place to shop, place to start a business. They did create a landing page at Brainerd Works, completed a summer marketing strategy, You Betcha Brainerd, and placed radio ads designed to draw locals and visitors to shop. I heard a lot of those this summer, so.
Yeah.
Go, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you, Kelly. Yeah, so I think one thing we want to add here, maybe just tweak one of these is now that we're going to have some properties identified and some marketing pieces on the properties, is it's have Visit Brainerd or whoever our marketing partner is to help promote these properties that we've identified this year. Mike?
Have we had a meeting with the heads of our community partners? Say, Mary Devine Johnson, and Tyler, Mrs. Bergman?
I think they've been meeting quarterly. You've had a couple meetings?
Yep, we've had two.
Okay. So I think in those meetings, maybe we identify niches for each and maybe come up with more of a cohesive plan. Who's marketing what? Are we all marketing the same thing? Are we all kind of repeating each other's message, or maybe combining part of a message, a place to belong type of thing, like the school district did? What's Brainerd's? You know, what is our
Slogan?
slogan? Yeah, let's throw it out there.
City of choice.
Used to be the city of Pines, I heard.
150 years
Cut 'em
ago,
all
we were
down.
the city of the pines, yeah.
Yeah, we cut them down. Now it's
Or the
box
city of
elders and-
Buckthorn.
And we got goats.
No, it's City of Goats.
Any ideas on marketing or
Yeah.
communicating who we are?
I would
Maureen?
just underscore that I feel a big need is just to have some sort of comprehensive marketing plan for Brainerd as a whole, so that, that we are really consistent in our messaging. And I know Visit Brainerd worked more on like attracting businesses, but especially for me as a downtown business, I need people to come down and shop. So I don't know if that necessarily falls under the purview of EDA, but if you want businesses to set up in downtown, you need customers shopping down there. So I feel like it does fall under EDA's purview to take a bigger step to, I don't know if it's some sort of branding or just more targeted marketing to get people to shop and visit Brainerd. I would especially love if they came to downtown, but even if we just had a general campaign for coming to Brainerd, I think a lot of locals don't shop locally. I hear every day of people that aren't even aware of what's going on in downtown Brainerd, and I've been down there for 3 years now. So there's only so much I as an individual business can do. We really need a more comprehensive and cohesive branding strategy to really identify Brainerd and get people to rethink where they're shopping and make the choice to shop here in Brainerd.
On that note, I want to add something. Maybe this is something that we talked about earlier about relocating in Brainerd, but when you look at, say, Westgate Mall, every time you go in there, there's maybe one or two more empty. And you go downtown and there's one or two less empty. So that might be somebody to market to as far as retail. If you're not getting the traffic that you want there now, start looking at the traffic that is going downtown now. Because I think we're seeing a shift in the old 1980s mall model back to going outside and breathing fresh air.
How can I put that as an action step? What is your thought?
I would say marketing to local retailers looking to relocate downtown.
But then in hand with that, do we need to identify a new use for the mall to figure out what to do?
That's in Baxter for the most part. The
Yeah,
part that's in Brainerd is actually redeveloped into a gym and a furniture store that are both pretty successful, so.
I think a piece to that is education to the public, that you buy local, your businesses thrive, your community thrives, your neighbors thrive. It's everyone works, it benefits everyone. It's a whole circle. So.
Yeah, I think we just need a whole campaign around like the downtown that you were used to 20 years ago is not there anymore, and come check us out, because I don't know how else to get people down there other than, me as an individual. I can advertise my business, but I think there just needs to be kind of a rebranding and helping people rethink where they're shopping.
I think there are a couple organizations we can work well with Bladek and the Chamber, that's one of their focuses as well.
I know that we brought this up during our during the Bruce Miles time that we had, is signage out on 371. It's historic downtown Brainerd shopping, those types of signs out there, directing people to the 371 bypass. And we talked about that at that time, and I don't know, it didn't really go anywhere, but I think based on the conversation you're having right now, who looks into that, to try and determine whether or not you can put signage out there? I'm sure it's a MnDOT thing, but
Yeah, and I don't know.
I just think there's an opportunity to drive people. Hey, we all know that people, even when they're in Baxter and they're at Costco, they still think they're in Brainerd. Well, let's let's move them the other way.
Yeah, and I don't know if any of that ties in with the 210 expansion and piggybacking on all that work that's going on. If we can, get a better set of signs on the main corridor at that time.
It worked for Nisswa. Pretty good shopping.
It's pretty good shopping up there.
So related to marketing, I know I obviously have a bias with having a business in downtown Brainerd, but I would love to see an intern or some sort of funding allocated for either a coordinator position or some sort of marketing, again, to just be able to support events and activities in downtown Brainerd. As we've heard from various reports from other vendors we've contracted with, the downtown core is really integral to attracting people to live and work and come to Brainerd. So I really want to see, I know everybody says we've already spent time trying to get downtown rehabilitated, but I'm seeing vacancies pop up in downtown now where we have about 5 vacancies that weren't there a month ago. So I just don't want to see us backslide again. So I think we really do need to keep focus on downtown. That's going to be a really key way to attract, developers and visitors and, all across the spectrum. So I really want us to have a nice, vibrant downtown core so that we're representing Brainerd and doing our best to show that it's a great place to live. So
This is one of those kind of blurred lines. Is it EDA or is it city? The city in its comp plan and in its strategic plan, I put together restarting, I don't know, restarting is the right word, but reinvesting in downtown through the Main Street program and having a Main Street coordinator. And that's already a city of Brainerd goal. Maybe the EDA takes that on for the city. Maybe DDBC takes that on for the city. I don't know, but we can throw it as a goal for the EDA. I don't know if that's marketing as much as identifying a need.
Mr. Chair, would that be something that you want to consider in your agreement with DDBC? So when you identify the scope of service for DDBC, maybe that's something the EDA is putting money towards DDBC to accomplish.
What was the last time we had Main Street 15 years ago? That was what, $60,000 a year program? Is the EDA going to find $60,000 to fund that program, or is it a city thing where it's levy dollars or half levy, half fundraised by DDBC? I don't know.
Partner with city DDBC to explore a Main Street coordinator?
I think that's a good first step, yeah.
Because if it was 60 grand 15 years ago, it's probably $120,000 now to fund that type of program. That's almost our entire levy. So it might be out of the wheelhouse of this body. Anything else on any of these? So Jennifer, next steps, you're going to throw all these together and leave all the old ones together and present it next month, and we'll just kind of go over it again and maybe refine after seeing what it looks like at that time?
Yep, I'll assemble all of this, I'll put it in a spreadsheet, and you can go through and yep, nope, wasn't exactly what we said, yep, nope.
Do we get to bring these dots back next month, or?
I don't think we're gonna need them. I think you can just go through that spreadsheet. Wasn't sure, wanted to be prepared for 100 of them. So I think this is good. I think this gives us a good framework and something we can pull together and bring back.
I will confer my dots to Kelly Bevins then.
You can have mine too.
I'm sure we'll find another use for dots. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, let's get back on the agenda, see what's next here. So that was new business. 6A, establish goals and action steps for the EDA. That brings us to item number 7, staff reports. Executive Director.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think the only update that I have is I think I did mention that D.W. Jones closed on the Thrifty White building. We are going to be working with them to kind of explore the opportunity of a redevelopment district. So the HRA and the city are kind of exploring those opportunities. So that's, just want to give you an update on Thrifty White moving forward.
Can you provide clarification, or do you know what building type they're going to have? Because I've heard they were going to have retail main floor and then apartments, and I've heard rumors that it's just going to be a parking garage on the first. And Do you have any update on that, or?
So preliminary. Right now, the proposal is commercial and parking on the first floor, 75 units. James and I will be meeting with Skip DeShano to talk through the zoning code and the requirements in that. It's just so preliminary.
Okay.
But right now, preliminarily, the commercial is just a small office for D.W. Jones.
And on the 8th Street side was also going to be commercial.
A commercial unit they'd lease out to a.
They have to because of the overlay district, that the zoning code will require that.
Yeah, I guess my concern is just to keep with the character of the rest of the downtown. I would hate to see as much as I want apartments to go in, I would hate to see it be something that's not in line with the rest of the historic buildings downtown. So I'll just make that comment.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. End of the executive director's report. Let's go to the HRA, Eric.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. A couple of quick updates. HRA has been working on terminating a minimum assessment agreement on a property in downtown that is in a current TIF district. It's currently located at 416 South 6th Street. New owner did purchase that building in August and has requested that the HRA terminate the assessment agreement that we have with the been previous developer there in hopes that they will get the benefit of lower real estate taxes in that district. Because of that minimum assessment district that's there, the taxes on that building are approximately anywhere from 50 to 60% higher than the rest of the downtown district. In return, they are HRA has some bond debt that is still owed in that TIF district. They would, in return, be paying off our bond debt. So we, as a board, have agreed to proceed with terminating that minimum assessment agreement. We do need to get sign-off from all 3 taxing districts in there. So that's the City of Brainerd, Crow Wing County, and the school district. I've been to 2 of those bodies and have received approval from City of Brainerd and through the county. My next step is to go through the school district, which I'll be at the school district presenting that on Monday. Once that is complete, we should be able to terminate that assessment agreement. That will help bring in a new business to that building. And from what we hear from that business or the building owner is that we will have a full building. They are doing plans right now of renovating that building inside and adding some more office space as well. So it's an exciting project. The HRA is thrilled to be able to partner with that to get our bond debt paid off a little bit sooner and save on some interest in turn to negate that assessment agreement. So things are on track with that. Wanted to let the EDA know that since that is in the central core of downtown. HRA, just kind of proper, we've been doing some preventative maintenance on our buildings this time of year. We've gotten crack sealing and redoing some of our parking lots over in North Star in our office building. It's a really good way to maintain and make sure that our parking lots, as well as, we don't want more parking lots, but we need to maintain the ones that we've got so we can make sure that our residents have places to store their vehicles. So we did that before the winter comes and sets in. We've also now been going through our scattered sites to make sure that furnaces are checked and everything like that for our residents. It's a big undertaking for our maintenance department, so happy that we can do that, make sure that our properties are in good shape. And then just as a final note, we do continue to chat with developers. As Jennifer mentioned, D.W. Jones, we are certainly with the appropriation of funds through Main Street. We do have, I think, some positive outlooks that development will continue to move forward. I do believe that they will be requesting funds from our Housing Trust Fund on the Crow Wing County HRA side of it. They do need to apply for that, and our board will have to approve anything that goes through there. But we do anticipate seeing some funding requests there in the next few months to continue to see that progress. So we're excited there. Greater county-wide, we are continuing to meet with developers for properties throughout the county. As we can drive business back to Brainerd, we certainly want to do that. We do make sure that developers that are maybe looking outside of the confines of Brainerd do know that there are opportunities here as well. You continue to try to get as much information out to these developers as you can to help them make those informed decisions. What we're continuing to hear, though, is that developers do, I don't know that I would say anticipate, but they do look into and look more favorably on communities that have site control, that are able to confer and convey land at a cheaper cost than in the market. So as we talk today about some of that industrial land and things like that, the city does have that site control, and that is vitally important when we talk about marketing and from a city's perspective, or anyone who has that site control, if they're willing to let those lands go at a relatively affordable price, that's going to help drive that developer interest, and we do see that throughout the county. So with that, if you got any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. If not, that's the end of my report.
Any questions of the HRA?
I guess any movement on the, I forget the name of the large 110 unit property on the north edge of town? You would remember the name.
I don't.
North of Northtown.
Is that the
Senior Living.
Senior Living
Yeah,
Center?
Senior Living.
Country Manor?
Country Manor, that's the one.
No, they were supposed to, the plan was construction in 2022, obviously didn't happen. We have not heard from them in a couple of months. They do own the land. We'll circle back around with them.
Thank you.
We got to remember that for our building permit revenue for 2023. Okay, no other questions of the HRA. We'll go to commissioners' comments or questions. Mike?
Nothing to add.
Kevin?
Nothing to add.
Nothing.
Marie?
Nope.
Okay, I do have a couple, Tyler.
Yep.
So Cheryl informed us that they will not be accepting their $50,000. So we got $50,000 we have to spend, people. Are we going to reconvene? Are we going to meet next month? Are we going to get a recap of people who declined the grant that they applied for? And then we try and get that money out immediately? Or are we going to sit and wait 6 months, 12 months? What's your idea
Yeah,
here?
I was going to raise my hand and wrap a bow around some of this. So, yeah, good point to Cheryl and Region 5 not wanting to accept their funds. I would leave that up to the subcommittee. If we want to reconvene the subcommittee and they can make a determination, that was the body assigned to this. So if they want to make a determination on how that additional $50,000 is spent, I think that would be the wisest choice. We will find out. So for starters, all of the denial grant agreement or denials for the applicants, that will all come out from the Initiative Foundation. Those will go out more than likely today. They have the list, and so letters will be issued out to all of those folks that were not awarded grants. That is coming from the Initiative Foundation. The EDA board does not have to sign any of those. And also the grant agreements. The grant agreements will come signed from the Initiative Foundation as well. How you use your $20,000 and $80,000, that can be dealt with internally. You can copy that grant agreement, however it makes it easiest for you guys. Majority of the questions will still continue to come into us, so I would imagine we're going to get from the Initiative Foundation when people accept or not accept their grant. And once they go through the process, because they still have to go through the financial process of being able to identify their matching funds. And if they don't meet that criteria, I would imagine that money will come back again. The Initiative Foundation informed us in the last handful of days that they want the money out ASAP. So they're going to move pretty quickly through the grants that have been approved and verify that information, but they want this money out as soon as possible. So with the $50,000, I guess I would look to potentially, I can set up a meeting for the subcommittee to determine how you want to spend that, because we can get that out pretty quickly. But with regards to the rest of it, as soon as that money is either denied or they can't show that they have the matching funds, that'll come back to this group as well. Okay. I'm hoping for a very quick turnaround, honestly.
So that another question based on what Cheryl said. Do you have a pretty firm idea of what the reporting requirements are going to be, or the requirements to get the physical check from the Initiative Foundation and then the requirements after you have that money?
The requirements that we know to this point are all based on all the information that came from the state. It's the primary criteria is going to be being able to prove matching funds, and that the projects have to meet the guidelines that they set forth, which was everything that we worked off of. So I don't think we're going to have too many issues. They may pop in and, there might be some things in there that they look at and say, oh, we're not going to fund that. So we may get some different money. If for some reason the group missed equipment, as an example, equipment's not allowed. But I would say that the list that we went through, the information that we gathered, I can't imagine there's going to be too much that comes back, if any. But we'll monitor that and make sure that you guys understand if it has come back, if the Initiative Foundation says it's not eligible, we'll get that back to this group.
I do have one question. In regards to the grant agreement, is the Initiative Foundation giving a hard deadline saying, let us know by this date, so we can either give it potentially to that recipient or put it back into the pool? Do they have a hard deadline to
I don't think so. Do you remember? We didn't have one. I mean, there is such a lengthy period of time. I'm just looking at Allison because with the stuff that we did with the county, we didn't have any deadlines in there, but with the amount of time that they have to make a decision, as Gabe mentioned, we did have a November of 23 was the hard stop for the Initiative Foundation to award funds. So there is a hard stop, so I would guess that that's going to be in the grant agreement. But again, there was a couple of curveballs that were thrown at this late regarding matching funds. So if people had expenses related to that, I know that got out to everybody. So there's going to be some legwork that's involved going forward. But I would anticipate as quickly as they need this money out, it's going to move pretty fast. I would hope that I know that November timeline will be in their grant agreement, though.
Okay, so there might be some trickle in at the last minute that the subcommittee will have to make.
Next December or next November, yeah, there might be
Okay.
$765,000.
Yeah, you are. I think with the the willingness of the subcommittee, everybody was pretty nimble and able to move pretty quickly. If these things do come back, the group can certainly reconvene pretty quickly for the most part, and I think we can make those decisions. And honestly, if the EDA has to call a special meeting to make a determination on some funds, I'm sure you guys can do that too.
I think that would be a wise choice, just to
For
get
sure.
these funds out as
Yeah.
soon as possible if we know someone's denying acceptance.
Yeah.
So,
Any special meetings will be in the evening.
yep.
Any other questions or anything else we need to know going forward on the Main Street program? Tom?
Nope. We'll make sure all the communication that we have will be shared through Jennifer and this board. So, but yeah, again, the subcommittee did some great work on this. It was a good process. Everybody seemed to be on the same page. We moved pretty fast. So good work, all of you.
Yep, thank you, Bladek, thank you, subcommittee. Marie, you're back on the subcommittee. I just filled in to stand in judgment of your application, so get Marie back in on the emails. Anything else to come before the commission? Seeing nothing, we will adjourn at 8:53. Thank you all. I guess I'll
Thank
take a
you.
motion to adjourn. This isn't a subcommittee.
Motion.
So moved. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, same sign. That motion carries.